ABC Sports.
There's a new sound in racing. It's the cars of the Indy Racing League. Today is the start of the road to the Indianapolis 500 for defending champion Buddy Lazier. Buddy is at Walt Disney World with the IRL's radical new cars, every one brand new and fitted with all new engines. This is the first test. 200 miles at Walt Disney World Speedway for the Indy Racing League. The start of the race is just moments away. We're at the Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney World in Florida. But we're over at the Walt Disney World Speedway because the Indy Racing League is ready for the Indy 200. And never in history has a major motorsport series started a race with all newly designed cars with newly created engines. Today is a historic first. We start with Jack Arute.
Well, part of that historic first, the package, the chassis, while the overall dimensions and the ride heights, etc., all very similar to last year, there are some changes. Cost, tub width, the use of the gearbox, etc. But probably the most distinctive thing that you will see is directly behind a driver's head, an opening that leads down into the engine compartment and forces air to the other part of the new package. And for more on that, here's Gary Gerald.
Jack, for the first time in over 30 years in this type of racing, the engines that power these cars do not have turbochargers. They're naturally aspirated. That means there's no pop-off valve that we've seen in the past that used to sit right here in the bodywork behind the driver's head. These racing engines are based on production models that you and I might well drive on the street. The Oldsmobile Aurora, the Nissan Infiniti. Now, these engines will generate 675 horsepower. That's down about 200 horsepower from what we've experienced in the past. That, with the reduction in downforce with a chassis redesign, means that these cars today about 15 miles per hour slower than they were 1 year ago at this racetrack. Jack?
Gary, hard to believe that this gentleman right here has always been a key player in all the IRL races, but Tony Stewart has never won. Will that change today, Tony?
Well, we hope so. You know, these guys have done a really good job getting this car prepared, and all the work they've done in preseason testing has just been unbelievable. So, you know, we need it for the team. The team deserves this as much as I do.
John Menard and the Menard package are gone. They run the same package as everybody else. And there's been other news this week at Walt Disney World Speedway. And for more on that, here's Gary Gerald.
First day of practice, Thursday morning, horrifying crash in turn 3. Veteran driver Davy Jones, driving for Rick Gallis, lost control. The car backed into the third turn crash wall, impact 106 Gs. Ricocheted down off the inside wall. He was unconscious, airlifted to a nearby regional medical center in critical condition. Fortunately, he regained consciousness. X-rays, CAT scans proved to be negative. He is now convalescing. He's reported in serious condition, but he's alert, awake, and talking to those who tend to him. That opened the door for rookie driver Jeff Ward to step into the backup car for Rick Gallis. Jeff Ward, with 1 day of preparation, stepped in here, qualified this car 8th. And Jeff, the question for you, as a former motorcycle, many-time national champion, here you are with maybe your best opportunity. How comfortable do you feel for 200 miles?
I feel really good, Gary. I mean, the Gallis crew and David Jones have done an excellent job with the car, so it's made my job a lot easier. So now I just have to get out there in race conditions and then bring it home.
Jeff Ward, car number 4 from the 4th row. Paul?
And Davy Jones, everybody here wishes you well. Now, this is the start of ABC's motor racing coverage for this 1997 year, and it leads you right up to the 81st running of the Indy 500. We're going to have plenty of coverage. And a couple of additions. Joining our IRL coverage team is the Gas Man, the 83 winner of the Indianapolis 500, none other than Tom Sneva. Tom, all of these variables that we have talked about, what's that going to do to the driver's head?
Well, it's like Christmas Day for these drivers. Shiny new toys. You rush to put them together. But if you play too hard or wind them too tight, sometimes by the end of the day, they don't work as well.
Couple of factors there, the chassis and the engines. What are they most worried about?
Actually, the drivers have been real pleased with the chassis. They can anticipate and predict what they're going to do actually before they do it. So they're happy with the chassis. The big question mark is the engines. They just haven't had many miles on the motor, so that's what we need to look for.
The track here, 1 mile, 3 turns. It's good.
really is. 3 distinct turns, different banking in each corner, but actually 2 of the turns you run flat out. You never lift. So it really boils down to turn 1, and who's going to be able to get back on the power the quickest is going to be the guy that runs up front all day.
Well, if we've talked about all these stories, who's your choice?
That's a tough one, Paul. You got to look at experience with Lyndike and a good year, but then you got Tony the Tiger, and you've got youth, and you've got a team that has actually had more time with these cars and motors than any other team. So that could be something that we need to follow.
Well, enough of the talking. We're ready to go racing. Let's go down to Jack.
And Paul, I'm with Mr. Judson Green, who's the president of Walt Disney Attractions. Sir, it's all yours.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
That brand new roar. The new normally aspirated engine as they're ready to go. We'll be right back for the start.
ABC Sports coverage of the Indy 200. Brought to you by Pennzoil Motor Oil. First to fully achieve the tougher 1997 GF2 performance standard. Goodyear, #1 in tires. True Value, official hardware store of IRL and garages everywhere. And Monsoon, power, attitude, audio for the road.
The cars have begun their rollout. Let's take a look at how they line up. On the pole is Tony Stewart, his second pole in the IRL series for the 25-year-old youngster. Alongside is Arie Luyendyk, the winner on the Phoenix Mile last year. In row 2 is Buzz Balkins, the defending champion of the Indy 200 at Walt Disney World, and Scott Sharp, the winner at New Hampshire and the IRL co-champion in '96. In row 3, it's Eddie Cheever, his best starting position since qualifying 4th last year at Indy, and Scott Goodyear, his first IRL start. In row 4, it's Davey Hamilton, 34-year-old driver from Idaho in one of A.J. Foyt's cars. Jeff Ward will be alongside the former motocross champion, replacing Davey Jones. And in row 5, Jim Guthrie, his first top 10 qualifying effort. Fermin Velez will be on the outside of 5, a veteran from Spain who logged his best IRL qualifying spot thus far. In row 6, it's Buddy Lazier, the winner of last year's Indy 500. And Marco Greco, a former 500cc motorcycle champion. In row 7, John Paul Jr., a veteran driver with a pair of top 10 efforts in IRL competition. And Mike Groff, who is currently atop the Indy Racing League point standings. Jared Schroeder is on the inside of row 8. He's prepared for this day by racing in Formula 4s and Atlantic cars. And outside is Danny Angayas, who finished a strong 7th at Indy last May. The 9th row, Roberto Guerrero, veteran, ran 5th here a year ago. Dr. Jack Miller, 35-year-old racing dentist, making his IRL debut. And alone in the 10th row, Stefan Gregoire, with a pair of top 10 finishes in his 5 previous IRL starts. Let's go back down to Jackaroo.
And Paul, we're with the new executive director of the IRL after 37 years of watching racing. Leo Mel, your impressions here today?
Well, we're making history today, Jack. All new cars, all new engines, great drivers. What a great setting. 35 years, I never saw a better place to race than Walt Disney, and this is just chapter 1. We're going to get better.
Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary?
One of the tough luck stories this weekend centers around the veteran driver in the colorful number 21 car, Roberto Guerrero. He was testing on Wednesday when they encountered a problem with their new Infinity engine, which they'd just gotten. They had to ship the engine back to the West Coast, awaiting a new one. Didn't get here until yesterday after qualifying. Finally, they got it in late last night, had only a handful of laps this morning to make sure everything is working. He's at the back of the field, hoping that he can come from the back of the challenge in basically an untested race car.
Yeah, but Bobby G and the Pennzoil car is ready to go. 200 laps here today, expecting the first stops at 60 to 75 laps, but fuel is one of the questions. There's plenty of it for the race, but exactly when they're going to stop for it is the question. And here are all the manufacturers that have an interest in this victory beyond the drivers and how they count in the field. So we are now on the pace lap itself. Johnny Rutherford driving the pace car. We should be ready to go green. Brian Howard is the starter. He has the green in his hand. As they come off of that third turn, pace car heads down for the pit area. Looking up to the line, Tony Stewart bringing him down. And we are underway as Tony Stewart jumps in front. Battle instantly develops back for second place as Calkins comes in to challenge. racing. And Buzz Calkins down low as they come off the corner. Off of turn 3. Behind the black car of Buzz Calkins, there is Scott Sharp, but we're now on board up at the front. Looking out the back of Ari Leyendyke's car.
Looking at Buzz, and I think they're just going to settle down here for a few laps. You know, the cars are new, the motors are new, and they're just going to get into a rhythm right now, Paul.
You know, one thing they did right off the start, when they started those engines, and that roar went up, boy, that reminded me of the 50s and 60s at Indy.
Well, if you like NASCAR because of the noise, you're going to love the IRL.
Continuing to watch the battle for second place. Red, white, and blue is Leyendyke. The black car, that's Buzz Calkins, defending champion here. Scott Sharp, the blue and white car, closing in on that battle now. Slightly different line.
A little bit different, but again, they're just feeling the cars out, seeing how the balance is. You know, they pretty much guessed going into the start of the race what the track would be like. It rained a lot last night, so it was a little bit of a guess game for him.
Advantage going to Stewart with the clear track in front of him. Up on the top is the rating of where the cars are in the field and their relationship to the leader. And, of course, the lap count. You look at it, you'll see that Ari Leyendyke has fallen 3.5 seconds behind the leader, Stewart. So he's charging right away.
Well, again, the big question for him is going to be fuel mileage, and right now they're just pacing themselves, getting a feel for it.
See on that car there, on Ari's car, Green Bay?
Yeah, Leyendyke's got Green Bay, and his teammate Goodyear's got New England on the side of their car. So, you know, if we're worried about the Super Bowl, you might have to follow one or the other.
Might be a prediction, though we don't want to affect any of the odds. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Tony Stewart, the last thing he did before he strapped himself in the car, he said, fellas, I'm not worried about how you prepared the car. I'm more worried about how I'm going to perform. He feels the burden that this team carries, and he feels he let the team down last year a couple of times. Last thing he said is, I'm going to try and win this one. So far, all they've done is talk to him and say, easy, take it easy, take it easy. You know, Tom Steva, that's important advice in the beginning.
Well, it really is, but it's early right now, and he's not getting any pressure. So, obviously, the car's working well, and, you know, he's really not extending himself at this point.
Let's go to Gary.
Early report problems possibly for Ari Leyendyke, telling the crew that his engine seems to be flat. They're concerned. The crew is telling him, stick with it. That's why you're not seeing any challenge from Leyendyke as he tries to hang on behind Tony Stewart.
The fight stays at second place.
It really does, and Calkins, I think, is just sitting there trying to see what's going to happen.
Looking out the back of Ari Leyendyke's car. Two interesting confrontations here. Ari Leyendyke, champion, tremendous experience. Buzz Calkins winning his first race in the first one he ever drove in an Indy car in this series at this track 1 year ago. But he seems to have started very strong and then matured greatly since then.
Well, he really has. Buzz has primarily got a background on road courses, so he came out last year and did real well here, and, you know, he's right in the hunt early here.
So Buzz Calkins inches up on Ari Leyendyke in the corner, but Ari gets off the corner a little more efficiently, and the interval remains the same. But look, here comes Scott Sharp. He closes up for a second on Calkins, and he just may have a little better run through that corner than Calkins has. So we'll keep watching on the Scott Sharp car as well. It's now a three-way battle for second place. And beginning to work his way in there, too, is Jeff Ward, who is currently sitting back in fifth. So the race is underway, and there's your lineup, 11 laps complete in the Indy 200.
Nicholas, Trevino, Irwin, Floyd. The only game where there's a champion on every hole. The Senior Skins Game, next on ABC.
Fast, but threading his way carefully. The leader, Tony Stewart's got a good lead. In fact, it's so humid here, contrails coming off the rear wing. But as we've been away, there has been a pass for second place, and it's Buzz Calkins. He may have taken advantage of the fact that we're getting reports that Ari Leyendyke's engine seems to be sounding a little flat.
Well, Well, no question, that's at the end of the straightaway, so that's just a horsepower thing. It didn't look like they came off the corner that much different. They got through the corner about the same speed, but that appears to be a horsepower thing, and Ari's motor might be getting flatter and flatter.
So Buzz Calkins, the defending champion in that black Bradley car, moves up into second place. Well, Tony Stewart now has to deal with traffic. That's Jim Guthrie just ahead of him.
With the tight racetrack, and it's tough to pass, so traffic is going to be a factor before this thing's over.
Jack Miller and the Crest car into the pits early on here. We'll keep track of him. Move back and take a look at Buddy Lazier. And Eddie Cheever is beginning to work on him. Lazier is 7th.
Actually, Buddy didn't qualify that well, but they were talking with him after qualifying in the last practice session. They felt they had regained what they had in practice, and so they were very optimistic about what might happen here today.
You remember Buddy from last year's Indy 500 as the champion, coming back from all of those terrible fractures in his spine. Now, it's not entirely over. I mean, they're still working on it, a lot of therapy. Cheever closing up there. Matter of fact, he had to have surgery back in October. Cheever tries to the inside. Lyondike shuts it down.
Eddie's running
Lazier shuts it down, excuse me.
And Lazier's running a lot later apex getting into turn 2 than Eddie, but Eddie might have foresaw the traffic that was just ahead of him and was looking for that opening.
That, of course, was Roberto Guerrero that they were working around. Purple 91 car, white trim.
Through turn 2 there, a lot of throttle through turn 2 and 3. A little bump right in the middle of 3. I don't know if you can notice it on Lazier's car.
Some 35 gallons of fuel in these cars, methanol fuel. As the fuel tank unloads, how much difference does it make in handling?
Well, I talked to a lot of the guys because these are new cars again, and they could be different, but they seem to respond like the old cars. You put a full load of fuel in them, they seem to have a little more push or understeer. They're a little harder to turn, but as the fuel load goes down, they come back to more of a neutral situation.
Lazier and Cheever breaking off their battle to the moment just ahead of them. The fight for 5th place. Jeff Ward, again substituting for Davy Jones, and Scott Goodyear has been working on him, so we'll track that for you too. Well, we can track it right now because Lazier has just pulled within contact distance of Scott Goodyear.
Well, not only that, Lazier hasn't been able to shake Cheever in this situation either. Eddie's right there.
So a 4-way battle now, all of them looking for 5th place. The front of the fight, that number 4 car, predominantly red and black, that's Jeff Ward. And then Goodyear, the all-white car, the Nortel car, just behind him. Scott dials it right out to the wall. The purple car, of course, that belongs to Lazier. And then Eddie Cheever is just behind Lazier.
But, Paul, this is the kind of stuff we're going to see. We've got 4 cars together, and we're going to see a lot of packs like that, especially as the series develops. We get more cars out there, and they get more time with these cars.
I'll tell you what, preparation for this race has truly been a miracle. There's Danny Angayas in the pits. Had a good run at Indy last year. The fact that they're here with these cars, these engines, that's really a miracle. I mean, in less than 9 months, engines, chassis, they've done a tremendous amount of work.
Well, they have, and a lot of teams didn't get their equipment until very, very late. Danny was one of them. They had no time in the car before they got here, and so they've struggled a little bit this weekend trying to learn what it wants, and the learning curve is very steep.
You know, despite all that, I was really astonished at the good attitude, the good humor that was going on in the pits. Everybody helping one another. You didn't have a part. They weren't sure. There's a lot of camaraderie going on down there with all of this new equipment. On board the Nortel car, Scott Goodyear. Currently 6th. You saw Danny Angayas in. Jackaroo, what's going on there?
They are not sure what the problem was, Paul Page. The crew scrambled over the Chitwood team. It's a brand new team. The report was excessive smoke. Whenever you take a brand new engine combination, you might have some fittings loose.
Yep. Wow. And Jackie was talking right in front of Goodyear. Ward just really got sideways. It snapped on him. He rolled out of the throttle and caught it, but that was close. That got his heart started.
And they've also come up now and joined the fight for 4th place by catching up to the blue and white car, Scott Sharp.
I think you're going to see Ward fall back a little bit. Anytime you get that far sideways, you're going to sneak up on the next couple corners before you really start leaning on it again.
The apprehension zone for a lap or two, huh?
That's one way to put it. You're trying to get the heart rate down somewhere below 200.
Tony Stewart, the leader of this race, charging up through this field as he closes now on part of the fight at the front. Look at that.
Well, those are pretty good race cars and drivers right in front of them. So the Menard team has done their homework. Again, they've had the equipment longer. They've done more testing, and it's apparent here so far today.
34 laps, 34 miles complete, expecting the first stops as early as the 65th lap.
You know, last year, the Menard team had a different motor combination that a lot of people thought had more horsepower, and they thought that was their advantage. But here on this mile at Disney World, it's a handling track, and right now, Tony can do about anything he wants, and it really makes the driver look sterling when the car works that well.
I'll tell you what, he is a racer. You put him in about anything, he's going to go fast. Give him better equipment, he'll go even faster, but he's going to be competitive at any rate.
Well, no question. I think last weekend he's indoor midget race. Next weekend he'll be out running sprint cars or championship dirt cars. I mean, this kid's a racer.
And for fun, he'll climb in a go-kart. He was over at Stefan Johansson's place in Indianapolis. Nice facility. After his injuries last year, he'd still go over, run a go-kart, keep his skills up. Jack Arute.
Well, add another type of racing to Tony Stewart's resume. Just last week, guys, he went with his car owner, John Menard, up to the ice of Wisconsin, and they went ice racing. I asked Tony how it went, and he said, "I'm lucky I still have a ride."
Sounds like he might have had some body damage on that ice vehicle.
7.5 seconds. Stewart's lead over the field. Buddy Lazier gets down inside of Scott Sharp.
A good move by Lazier. I'm not sure Scotty thought he was coming at that point. You saw Scotty wiggle a little bit as he finally realized that Lazier was coming underneath, and caught him off guard just a little bit.
Lazier has moved from 11th to 6th place, 11th to 6th. And Scott Sharp, we're keeping an eye on him. At the same time, we need to report that the 18 car of John Paul Jr. has just received the black flag. They're going to bring him in. He's been sprained, they think. They want to take a look at the back of the car, make sure the track stays safe. And there's Sharp. Boy, he's slowing down big time as Jeff Ward comes inside that black and red number 4. Scott Sharp, the blue and white number 1. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Paul, let me tell you about Scott Sharp. Tom Stevie, you said the car wiggled a little bit. Well, that is because it's gone very, very loose on Scott Sharp. All A.J. Foyt could tell Sharp on the radio is try to bring it to the first pit stop. Just back out of it as much as you need. We just don't want to lose track position right now.
Well, when they get loose, the driver doesn't like that situation. You got the car's going to do one of two things. The front end's going to start pushing, the rear end's going to get loose. And if the driver's got his choice, he'd much rather have a push condition than the loose condition, because the loose situation gets to your foot from your brain a lot quicker, and you just got to roll out of the throttle, or you're going to crash the brother.
Buzz Calkins comes up behind Jim Guthrie with a report that he may be smoking, so let's watch that carefully. Hope it's not confusion with I prefer it would be confusion with the contrail. All I see is the contrail. John Paul Jr. answers the black flag.
I'm not sure that's a routine stop for John Paul. They were excited about adjustments they made after qualifying, so obviously some kind of problem.
Buzz still working on traffic. Now, Tom, you were the master of the miles. I want to talk to you a little bit about. Oh, there's a spray. That's smoking. That's not a contrail.
Well, you need to. A lot lot of people might not know what a contrail is, so you might have to explain that after this pit stop.
Well, that's sharp. Remember, we suddenly saw him come way off the pace. What are they looking at? The change?
Well, they're going to, believe me, they're going to make a change. They'll probably change the stagger, so they're checking their changed air pressure in the tires. Let's see if they go to the front wing. They do.
Boy, do they big time.
They're rolling out front wing. They're taking the downforce out of the front, trying to move the center of the pressure to the back of the car.
A little over 18 seconds in and out of the pits for Scott Sharp. And coming up next here on ABC Sports, don't forget the Senior Skins game from Hawaii. Coverage next. Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, Hale Irwin, and the three-time winner and defending champion Raymond Floyd. First 9 holes be played today, second 9 holes tomorrow.
I don't know, from the blimp view, you can see the lake in the middle in the shape of the Mickey Mouse ears. You know, this Disney group is really getting into this racing. They actually have Nomex Mickey Mouse ears here, so you don't find those everywhere. But
Did you buy yourself a pair? Gary, what's the story on John Paul?
Paul Diatlovich and the PDM crew said that they've got an engine cooling problem. They don't want to lose one of these precious engines early in the season. So they brought him in. They've tried to cool the engine down. They've sent him back out to see how it reacts. It was kicking out of an overflow tube in the rear under the wing. An awful lot of fluid when he came in and made the stop. But USAC officials sent him back on the track.
Buddy Lazier continues to work. John Paul was in the pits well over a minute, but that team, the PDM team, they've been helping out about everybody. It's been kind of the team that you went to if you wanted to pass a rookie test. I think they've actually provided the car for, what, 20, 25 guys at least?
yeah, they really have, and you know, it's not warm enough out here today to have heating problems, so they've got an internal problem. It's not going to get any better, and they're just going to try to stretch their day and see what they can get out of it.
Buddy Lazier runs in 6th. And he takes a look at Scott Goodyear just ahead. You're on board there with Jeff Ward. There's the leader from the green flag, Stewart. As we look at the lineup after 48 laps in the Indy 200. We'll return with more of the Indy 200 after this message and a word from our ABC station. Tony Stewart's the leader still, but Jackie's expected in the pit shortly.
Paul, there we go. Yes, he is, and one of the things that he's going to be concerned about is a new type of tire that he's using. Firestone and Goodyear both run a new tire. Why? Well, the speeds are slower, so they've gone with a softer compound. Another thing that they're also concerned about in Tony Stewart's pit is foreboding weather. Reports around here, dark clouds. There are some people that think it may begin to rain briefly in as little as maybe 10 minutes. Unfortunately, that's beyond the window for the leader, Tony Stewart. So Larry Curry and John Menard say, we're just going to have to stay according to plan. There's other changes on pit road as well, right, Gary?
Jack, with new cars and new chassis, there's also a change in technique for some of those who refuel and service these cars. With the new chassis and the new engines, the jack and the vent man who used to take his 2 items and plant them on top of the car with 2 hands now has to enter from the side. He's right next to the fueler. There's very little room to work. Any possible mistake could be costly. And here's Buzz Hawkins right now. We watch him go into action. In and jack in place. Fuel hose there. Fresh tires going on all the way around. The Hawkins crew reports everything has been good here in the early going as they get their new first pit stop with more equipment. It appears to be successful, and he's gone.
Good pit stop for Buzz. You know, Gary, like you say, it's a different position, but I think it's actually going to be easier for that guy to do his job with the vent and the air jack going in the side like that.
Now remember, though, Buzz was the one they were worried about smoking the back of the car. I didn't see anything obvious. Didn't see any blowback. I saw a little discoloration from the exhaust.
Well, we didn't even see any officials that concerned about it, so it might have been some of that vapor trail. Leader's coming in. Tony's coming down pit lane.
Tony Stewart makes the turn in and heads for Jackaroo.
80-mile-an-hour speed limit on pit road. They're coming down into the pits. Tony Stewart talking to his team. Now the question is, will they make any changes? According to Larry Curry, his answer was, why? We're running so well.
Yeah.
All they're going to do is take on the 4 tires, take on the fuel. Now remember, it's 35 gallons instead of the old 40. So it should be a little faster stop. He's having trouble getting it back into gear. He had a little bit of trouble getting it back into gear, but it was still 17.4 seconds. Paul, he could have been out 15.
Yeah, but, you know, why rush it? When you're that fast on the racetrack, why take a chance of making a mistake in the pits? And you were right, Jack. No need for changes. When you're that quick on the racetrack, you don't have to get too fancy. I was going to be real surprised if I saw him go for a wing adjustment.
One of the concerns the crews have expressed is the gearbox. Remember, it's the pattern, the H-pattern gearbox, and they've all been working on them because they think they're a little more brittle than they like them to be, so I think everybody's trying to do what they can.
Well, I don't know about brittle. Some of the concern has been how heavy that gearbox is. It's a 6-speed, and they're not real happy right yet with the gear selection situation, so they've been real concerned about that, but so far, no problem.
Buddy Lazier has been in the pits. 22-second stop. Eddie Cheever in for 17. Jackaroo.
Updating you on Tony Stewart. As soon as he went back out with a full load of fuel, you were talking about that 6-speed gearbox. Tom Sneva, John Menard, and Larry Curley both got on the radio and said, go to the lower gear. Tell people what that means.
Well, I'm not sure what that means. It looked like to me Stewart stretched his segment of that race about as long as anybody, but why you'd go to a lower gear, I don't see. They must not need to conserve fuel. They have plenty of fuel, I guess is what they're saying.
You're on board with Jeff Ward now. He was in the pits for a minute and a half just a while ago, and it looks like whatever the problem was still is not repaired.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe we can keep track of this and maybe even listen on the radio.
Well, he's been slow most of the way around that racetrack, so they got some kind of serious problem.
Some of these teams are kind enough to let us listen in on their frequencies and put them on the air. Nothing new from Jeff Ward. So it's Stewart, Hawkins, Lyondike. Velez has moved up into 4th place. Cheever is 5th. Quit come out of gear. That's Jeff Ward you were hearing. Going into 1, then it wouldn't go back into any gear. So he's having a problem getting it back in gear. There's your lineup. 67 miles complete in the Indy 200. Tomorrow night on ABC starts with Lois and Clark and America's Funniest Home Videos. And then check out our air attack in Hijack, Flight 285 on the Sunday night movie. That's all tomorrow night here on ABC. Well, Tony Stewart's still the leader, almost a full lap ahead of everyone else. Buzz Calkins is second, then Ari Lyondike. And we got another smoker down there, but let's go to Jackaroo.
We reported about the problems that Roberto Guerrero and the Pennzoil Pagan people had getting an engine. They got one in. Fuel pressure problems put you out of this race, Roberto. But your impressions under race conditions of this new package?
Well, the racing from the other guys, it seemed to be going great. Unfortunately, we weren't in it at all, which I guess it was too much, expecting a lot more. The car wasn't working very well at all, and eventually it was a fuel pump that put us out of the race. So hopefully we'll be ready for Phoenix.
Paul?
You see Buzz Calkins throwing some smoke again. Tom, you have any idea?
No, I don't. It's obviously not a turbocharger because they don't have those, but it's more than a vapor trail, and it looks like it's just when he rolls out of the throttle, he gets a little puff of smoke out of that mother.
So Buzz Calkins continues to fight his problem. Average speed thus far, no yellows thus far, 140.3 miles an hour. Part of the intent of the Indy Racing League is to slow the cars down a bit, bring the cost down, make them manageable as automobiles, because everybody knows, racing knows, that speed doesn't necessarily make great racing. Stewart is the leader. Buzz Calkins, we're watching that big puff of smoke again, is in second place.
Yeah, you see it going into 1, because that's really when they have to get out of the throttle. And turns 2 and 3 without traffic, you're really not getting out of the throttle, so we don't see it as much.
Ari Lyondike keeping an eye on Calkins from 3rd place.
I don't know if you can see that vapor trail right in the rear wing on those things. Indicate, that's more vapor trail.
And worse and worse.
But as the weather gets cooler, now that the front's coming in, the aerodynamics off the car is more
Tony Stewart, because the word was he was smoking a little bit as well.
Just getting under Danny and guys there. Danny saw him and let him by easily, so no problem there. I can't see the smoke they're talking about. You can definitely see that vapor trail off the corners of the wings.
But you do have to remember that the observers are right down on the track a little bit closer. Sometimes they sense it more than they see it. Gary Gerald?
Jeff Ward out of the car. It was a gearbox problem. How were conditions before you got that gearbox problem, Jeff?
The car started off really good, and then made a few good passes. Then it got really loose. I think everybody else got loose, and then once I came into the pits, I had no clutch, and then leaving, had a problem getting out of there. All we could get it in was fourth gear, and then once I was on the track, that's all it would stay in was fourth. So, and then it started vibrating real bad. So the gears, I think, are pretty messed up.
A great adventure for 36 hours for this young man, Paul.
Yeah, 40. It's time that he finally got a great chance to run up here. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of him. So now, with 118 laps to go, we're very close to an official race at the halfway point of 100 laps. Calkins slowed totally down.
Yeah,
let's check with Jack.
And you've got to begin to wonder, as Tony Stewart's team is that a precursor of what's going to happen to them as well? Because now Stewart, as you said, is smoking. Here's what they do when they hear a report like that. They look in the onboard telemetry, which is coming back to the pits in real time. That tells you the specifics about the performance of the car. Stewart's team has found nothing there. They've talked to Stewart on the radio, tried the onboard dashboard. They don't find anything there. They don't know what the smoking problem is, and it's kind of like sitting on a ticking time bomb.
Well, Jack, you're down track level. Have you actually seen it? Because Tom Sneva has not.
Well, unfortunately, from our vantage point, we're a lot like the team members. We can't see much of the racetrack with all of the equipment, and especially at the speeds they're going down the straightaway, forget it.
Well, there's such heavy humidity here. These are by far the largest contrails that I've seen off the back of a race car in years. That's a product of the low pressure area and the vortex that's created at the rear wing and the humidity added in. Buzz Calkins back on the track and up to speed. Gary Gerald, what's going on there?
Just talked to Brad Calkins, the father of Buzz. He says, we've got an engine problem. They at one point thought they were totally out of power. They had just put him out the word on the pit wall to bring him in. Then they frantically waved and said, no, leave him out. He's regained some power for the moment. So it appears to be an alternating gremlin of some kind.
You know, with these motors, they've had a lot of problems with alternators. They seem to vibrate quite a bit more, and they're harder on the accessory pumps, and the alternators has been a weak link on the Aurora motor.
Well, now, race control, who has been watching this and talking to their observers, they have now said that pretty much everything we're seeing is a contrail, with the exception of Buzz Calkins. That is not a contrail, as you just saw. Jack?
Well, Tony Stewart's not going to take any chances. They've decided to back off just a bit. The quote was, Tony, put it on cruise control. They are concerned about this smoking report.
Yeah, Jack, that's why I was surprised. They were getting mileage, so they wanted to go down a gear because they didn't need the mileage. But, boy, I think I'd be trying to go as easy as I can on that motor. You don't need the lower gear. You're plenty fast in the higher gear.
Leader of the race trying to work on a lap on Fermin Velez. Here is Ari Lyondike, second place. And there is your lineup. 88 laps are complete. We're nearing the halfway in just 12 laps. That'll be an official race. And thus far, it has been clean and green all the way at Walt Disney World Speedway.
Kansas takes on Colorado in a Big 12 battle. Clemson faces North Carolina, or Cincinnati meets USC. It's Payne Weber College Basketball tomorrow on ABC.
Tony Stewart, there he is, the yellow and orange Glidden car. He has a very strong grasp on the first position on this race. He has not truly relinquished it since he jumped into it from the pole on the green flag. A lot happening here with the IRL, these brand new cars, brand new engines, a lot of questions being answered already as well. Let's go down to Jack Arute.
Well, we're talking to update you on Ari Lyondike. Remember, Ari had a push worse condition before? Well, when they came into the pits, he adjusted the front wing. You called it, changing the angle of attack. Now the car, according to Fred Treadway, is in good shape, and Ari Leyendijk is on the move.
Balance is the key to these things. Trying to get the front and the back to match up with each other. Like I say, a lot of guys are going loose. They already had a push, and it's a lot easier to solve a pushing problem than it is a loose problem. Here we got some pretty good traffic. It's getting a little busy out here for Ari right now. See how far he's turning that wheel as he's trying to get through this traffic. Obviously, we got trouble right in
trouble
front.
ahead of him, and he dodges off. And Ari's in trouble. Can he keep it? Oh, he can't keep it off the fence.
Well, that's too bad. Somebody gets in trouble. The heavy traffic right in front of him. Somebody gets in trouble. He rolled out of the throttle, and when he did, the back end got loose.
Yeah, but when you get off on that grass, it goes faster. And there was what I think that's the car that originally got sideways and caused the problem. A rookie to the series, Jared Schroeder, comes out of Ford's and Atlantic. It looked like a white car lit up first. We'll go back and take a look at it. Obviously, Ari's okay.
Yeah, Ari hit it real slow and easy, so...
This is looking from the wall cam. Let's see what that first white car...
Well, there's Jared
there
sideways right in the middle of the corner. All by himself. He's not in traffic. He's leading that traffic, and the car just jumped sideways on him.
And so once he catches the wall, pretty good bash on the back end.
Yeah, but you could tell, you could see his head bounce a little bit, but, you know, that's about as soft as it's going to get.
Different angle.
Well, there's Ari right down through the middle of the guys.
Ari is saying, get me out of here. I'm not so sure it was the best move. Let's go back now and take a look at Ari from his onboard camera and slow it down a little bit.
If you look ahead, you see the white car right up there. He's getting sideways right there. Ahead of Ari. Ari's in traffic. There's 2 or 3 cars in front of him. He might not be able to see that guy get sideways until the last minute. It surprises him a little because of all the cars right in front of him. And
yeah, exactly.
When it surprises him, he had to jump out of the throttle. And
looked like he thought he had a move, jumped out there and saw the car. Then when he turned back in, he turned in a little too hard. All right, let's go back and we'll take a look. Once again, this is the position mounted on the wall. We'll watch and listen.
Yeah. I mean, that thing just jumped sideways on him.
Everybody else gets through pretty cleanly there.
Yeah, they got through clean because they had a better view of it at that point. And Ari was hit in traffic, and it surprised him.
So we're at a point where it is an official race. The 101st lap has just complete. We'll keep track of both Jarrett and, of course, Ari Leyendijk. We think Ari's fine. We'll wait for an update on Jarrett. We'll return with more of the Indy 500 after this message and a word from our ABC stations. First yellow of the day. Tony Stewart still the leader. There's the rundown. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
And Paul, right now, John Menard and his team are going to make a calculated gamble. Going for track position, not coming in.
Yeah, we want to be ahead of all these guys and run nice and clean. I think we can come around pretty fast. And, you know, we can run another 28 laps or so yet, maybe 30. So we're just going to go for track position.
Now, I know you're pulling for Green Bay. I can't figure out why, you cheesehead.
Yeah, there, hey.
Guys.
Nice hat, John. Nice hat. we need a chowder hat now for the New England guys.
Now Buzz Calkins still runs in second place, but Gary, he seems to be fighting a serious problem.
He was in the first pit box, and as soon as they came to yellow when they opened the pits, he ducked in 14.3 seconds, routine service. There was no oil at the back of the car, and the crew was delighted to find that out. As to whether or not they've pinpointed that gremlin, I don't know that they have. We will try to check on that as we get ready to go green.
As the skies darken here, too, from time to time you will see a flash of flame at the back of Calkins' car. Perhaps the others part of the product of the normally aspirated engine. You jump out of the throttle, little fuel gets sucked through there, and you got a nice flame.
Well, no turbocharger to hide that rich fuel mixture. Here we come, Paul.
Stewart comes back up to seat, gets a good jump on the field. By the way, for those of you keeping track, it is the Indy 200 at Walt Disney World. I'm just looking ahead to the 81st running of the Indy 500. Oh, no, it's combination good race car, but he also got a great restart. Here's the fight.
Well, that's Calkins and Sharp there in the black and the white and blue car.
And Sharp is off the pace. He's back a lap in 6th place. Back a lap.
That'd be a good story. Both Voigt cars haven't been up as far to the front as we thought. Maybe we can get one of the guys in the pits to maybe check that out, see what's happening in the Voigt pit.
Well, that's Sharp, the blue and white car. One of A.J. Voigt's 2 drivers. Davey Hamilton being the other, the 14 car.
Well, and it's back there about 4 positions back in the red and white car, the 14 car.
In the running order up at the top of the screen, plus the interval back from the leader. And the lap's complete. While the sky is somewhat threatening, no real reports of any moisture on the track, though for a while there, Scott Sharp apparently wasn't sure if it was blowback from Buzz Calkins' engine or if it was rain. He apparently asked that question on the radio a couple of times.
This is a pretty good battle here. In the green and white car, we got Marco Greco that's having a fine run here today in the 5th spot.
Marco Greco started in 12th up to 5th. He's been taking it very carefully and very smooth. Let's go down to the pits, Gary Gerald.
Oh, you talk about new cars, new engines. How about a new face wanting to drive one of these new cars? Greg LeMond, former Tour de France cycling champion, has started his racing career yesterday in the Formula 2000 Series. Had some qualifying problems, but from 32nd, you moved up to finish 20th. What was that first experience like?
Well, I came here in practice in December and ended up having some really good test times, and I came into this race hoping to do a little bit better, but my car wasn't right on practice day, and after 20 minutes, I put it in the wall, so I really didn't have much practice. I went into qualifying and lost control of the back end again. Found out the shock wasn't working properly in the right rear, and they finally got it right, but I qualified 33rd and ended up going up to 31st, ended up 20th, but the car was a world of difference when the mechanics got it right. It was perfect. It was a great experience.
It sounds like you're hooked on this 4-wheel business.
Pardon?
Sounds like you're hooked on this 4-wheel business.
Oh, this is great. These ovals are really impressive. I have a tremendous amount of respect for these guys out here right now. It's so much more physical than I ever anticipated. The concentration just has to be right on, or else you bite it.
The greatest cyclist this country's ever known, now racing with 4 wheels.
Yeah, I'll bet he likes any kind of racing where he doesn't have to pedal all the time, has something else doing the pedaling for him.
Well, you've seen those legs. If he could incorporate those as part of the horsepower package, he'd have it made.
Marco Greco, nice story. Been working at the Indy cars for a number of years, trying to get good rides. May have one now. Certainly showing with this run here today the skill that he does possess.
Well, he's got a real veteran in the pits trying to coach him on. Dick Simon's there and, doing a nice job today.
7th at New Hampshire last year. Las Vegas, he was 9th. Today he runs 5th. You ask about the A.J. Voigt cars, Jack Roots there.
And A.J. is taking control right now. He's trying to call on a pit stop for Scott Sharp. It looks like there may be a continuing problem. Now, you wanted to know, Tom, they have been battling for Scott Sharp and Davey Hamilton a very loose condition throughout the course of the race. But now, he's a lot taller than I am right now. A.J., what's the problem?
All kind of problems right now, Jay. We got all kind.
He's working with 2 radios, and Tom, you know that's difficult, even in the best of circumstances. We'll stay here and give you an update.
Classic A.J. Voigt. We got all kinds of problems.
But for Voigt working 2 radios, he's always full of double talk. He'll be able to handle that.
Buddy Lazier moving up on Scott Sharp. That is a battle for 6th place. A.J. stopped both of his cars under the yellow, brought him into the pits. As he works with both of them, Buddy Lazier, the purple 91 Delta car. Delta Faucet, the sponsor there, as he comes up on the Conseco car of Scott Sharp, the blue and white car just ahead. And let's go back to Jack.
Okay, here's the problem on Scott Sharp's car. There is a vibration somewhere in the car. Right now, what AJ and his crew is trying to do by way of radio, Tom, is try and reason their way through it. and then, if all else fails, they'll bring him onto pit road.
Well, it's a lot easier from the pits than it is from the cockpit, I'll tell you. Scott's got his hands full. You got a vibration. With new motors and new cars, you're not sure where it's coming from. But he's hanging in there, and he's keeping Lazier at bay, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah, stay out there while we think about it.
Yeah, that's always a good feeling. Your knuckles are, the blood has stopped flowing through your knuckles. The car's so ill handling at that point.
See how close this area is now. Again, the battle for sixth. The only fight on the circuit at this moment. Guys still threatening, but no rain.
Right in this battle with Sharp and Lazier is the other Coit car. Right back there is Davey Hamilton, so he's closing the gap, and we could have a nice little run going there.
He is, but he's a couple laps back. He's not actually closing on the track. He's got a few to make up.
This is what we're going to see a lot more of. We got the two different engines battling each other right there. Lazier with the Infinity, and then Sharp just ahead with the Aurora motor. Looking forward to a lot more battles that coming.
Gary Gerald.
Ari Leyendijk has been released from the safety center. You appear to be everything is okay, and can you take us through what happened in that crazy incident?
Well, I was following a group of 4 or 5 cars there for quite a while, and my car was, as soon as I had to get out of the throttle behind other cars, was misfiring really bad. And then it wouldn't pick up, so that's why I had a hard time passing traffic. Coming out of one, Jared Schroeder spun and hit the wall and kind of stayed there. There was a lot of smoke on the right-hand side. In front of me, all the guys had just jumped on the brakes. I got on the brakes too, but I had to go through them because I couldn't slow down enough. I was going to hit them from behind. And I went through them, but I had to make a turn to the left quite a bit, and then the car spun out. So I was just a victim of that whole deal there, really, which is too bad because the top 3 finish would have been in the books today. But my biggest problem was a misfire, and especially in traffic. On my own, I was okay, but behind another car, we really had a lot of trouble.
Another 6 weeks from now, as you get ready for the second event at Phoenix, I think everybody's going to feel a lot more comfortable as you evaluate these new cars and chassis.
Well, for sure. I think so far, though, a lot of cars are running pretty good nonetheless, and that's quite promising. So, of course, I'm not too happy about today because it would have been nice to finish the race for once for Speedway Racing.
All right, thanks, Ari. Jack?
Gary, let's put an end to the story about Scott Sharp. A.J. Foyt, Tom Stephen, just radioed to Scott. Don't worry about it, jitterbug. All it is a problem with the tire. How'd you like to hear that in your helmet?
Yeah, that's just what you want to hear. The tires are what's putting you to the racetrack, and a little problem with the tire at 180 miles an hour is a little more serious for the driver than it is for the chief mechanic or owner that's sitting on the pit wall.
So the fight continues at 6th place. Sharp and Lazier, the blue and white car, the purple car, with the leader coming up behind and still working his way through this field. Because of the way the sky's overcast here, the Goodyear blimp had to take off on us. Hopefully they'll come back. We had the Stars and Stripes overhead for a while. You got some very good views of this racetrack from Stars and Stripes. Hopefully Goodyear will get her back as soon as the clouds go up. I don't think they want her up there with the cloud down on the deck like it is now. And we don't want the clouds down on the deck if they've got any rain, but so far we have held off from that. It is well beyond an official race. 128 laps into the record book for the leader of the race, and that is, of course, Stewart. Coming up later today, 4:30, 3:30 Central, ladies competition of the European Figure Skating Championship from Paris. And then a Wide World Classic from 1962. Jim Beatty's become the first man to run a mile indoors in less than 4 minutes. And Stewart heads down into the pits. Jack Arute.
Paul, the most important thing that Larry Curry is telling Tony Stewart, hit the marks. Now what he means is he's got to come exactly in where he needs to be so that all the fuel hoses will reach. They're discussing right now whether they should make any changes. Tony Stewart's answer was, no, don't touch anything. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
And back here in the paddock, here's Schrader, the rookie driver. How was it up until this incident in your first experience with one of these cars, Jarrett?
Well, the Purity Farms McCormick Motorsports G4 Souls was running really well. I was comfortable. The car was balanced, running real well. I had an instance 10 or 20 laps prior to the accident. The car had gotten a little loose on me. I tried to be a little conservative at that point and build my speed back up. And, you know, it just caught me by surprise. You know, just went around on me.
Big learning curve, but you've taken that first important step. Wish you better in the future.
Thank you.
Paul?
Well, there's an idea of how very careful, despite his good speed, Tony Stewart's being. He comes up out of the pits, but he wants to make absolutely sure that those tires are working. And Eddie Cheever goes around him, and that puts Cheever into second place. Calkins, the black 12 car, he is currently the leader, the defending champion here at Walt Disney World Speedway.
Well, I'm not sure if it was him being cautious or simply coming out of the pits, trying to get up to speed, and Cheever was already there with a head of steam.
This is the first lap that Buzz has led in IRL competition since he won here a year ago.
We might get the guys in the pits to find out when he's going to be pitting. Obviously, he stretched that segment a little longer. I'm not sure that with the Menards, was that a scheduled stop or was that something out of the ordinary?
So Calkins takes the lead, relinquishes Cheever.
Tom, I can answer that question. Remember when they went for track positioning and John Menard said, we want to stay out front? They knew that with 24 laps back to green, they were going to have to make totally a scheduled stop. Now, why did they go for track positioning? Well beyond the obvious. They had a little bit of a push in the car. They wanted to try and adjust it with the bar on board. Once they knew that that adjustment would work, they said, let's go back to our regular deal.
Well, and that coupled with Calkins pitting on the yellow that came just prior to that situation put Buzz to the front of the pack.
You know, one of the things you guys got to remember upstairs, too, is in the case of Menard and the Stewart team, they've had a lot more time with this package than, let's say, someone like a Buzz Calkins and his Bradley Motorsports team. And that comes into play when you're trying to make adjustments on the fly, I would think.
Yeah, exactly the point that Tom made right at starting. By the way, of the engine battle, of course, most of them are the Aurora engine here. 3 have been Infinities, and of those 3 Infinities, only that of Roberto Guerrero is out of competition. Mike Groff, driving for Jonathan Bird, is still out there, as is Buddy Lazier. Lazier runs in 4th place, and Groff runs in 7th. Buzz Calkins, the defending champion of the Indy 200, is the leader by 11 seconds over Eddie Cheever. Stewart, the leader for such a long time, sits in 3rd place. The Indy 200 continues. 137 laps complete.
ABC Sports coverage of the Indy 200. Brought to you by Oldsmobile and your local Oldsmobile retailers. And Pennzoil Motor Oil, first to fully achieve the tougher 1997 GF2 performance standard.
Well, Tony Stewart, the bright yellow and orange Glidden car. Calkins, there's the leader. Serious smoke now, and he's pulled down on the pit road. That will give the lead of the race over to the man who just assumed second, which was Tony Stewart. He came around the first plus car of Eddie Cheever and set sights on Calkins, just as Calkins had a big show of smoke at the back of the car and headed into the pit. Stewart's in trouble. Stewart's in trouble as he slides across the line at the start-finish. It looked like he may have brushed the wall, but he may not have hit it hard. It's got a wheel way down in the back, tire down.
Tire down, right here. He's got that tire down. He was lucky to not get any worse trouble than that, but is that some of the oil out of Calkins' car? Can we check that out?
You have to wonder that. Now he's going to try to limp around. Jack Arute?
Absolutely. What it was, a tire went down. In the split second after the tire went down, Tony was on the radio telling his crew that that's all that's wrong with the car. They're going to bring it on a pit road and change that tire. With these engines the way they are and Calkins having what looks to be an engine expire, he could have run through some pieces.
Well, that's the problem with the naturally aspirated motor. When it goes away, parts and pieces can can fall on the racetrack. So it might not have been the oil, but it could have been debris from Calkins' car.
Both right side tires flattened as Tony Stewart tries to limp back to the pits. Let's look at it, Tom.
Well, he's just coming off the corner, he loses it right in the middle, so the air was going down. A lot of times the driver can't feel that, but when you put the lateral G-force in the car in the middle of the corner, you can see debris.
And one small little piece came off there.
You could see a little debris, but boy, that's about as good as you're going to get away with this. Again, turn one, right in the middle, the thing jumps sideways. Oh yeah, he's bent the wing. The wing touched the wall, and it actually tipped it back up, so
Tony Stewart takes the lead and then takes the wall. As they work on the car, get the right side tires in place, we're under our second yellow of the day. In the Indy 200, we go to Gary Gerald.
And Buzz Calkins is unstrapping and getting ready to come out. The reason why, they put the left side pod back on, but down deep and low on the block, there was a hole about the size of a baseball, maybe even as big as a softball. They blew this one up big time, Paul.
Well, first and second, then first, Tony Stewart and Buzz Calkins. The two combatants of the past several laps are both out of the car, and that gives Eddie Cheever's First Plus car the lead of the race under yellow. He is followed in the line then by Buddy Lazier and Mike Groff, then Scott Goodyear. So some action here, very quick action at the front.
Nicholas, Trevino, Irwin, Floyd. The only game where there's a champion on every hole. The Senior Skins Game, next on ABC.
Well, here's the story of the last few moments with Tony Stewart's car up there on top, Buzz Calkins down below, battling for the lead, both of them, and then both of them suffering ills. Calkins' engine's let go. In fact, Stewart may have become a product of that engine explosion, and his car comes into the pits after brushing the wall. Jack Arute.
A tough break for Tony Stewart. It was finally an oil leak, not the flat tire that put him out. You wanted to win this one so badly for your crew, and now it's beginning to rain. When you had the tire go flat, what went through your mind?
Well, they said we had an oil leak. They said there's some oil in the inside of the body on the right rear. So we had a test crash the same way. We spun in 3 over there, and I was getting oil pressure alarms, so that makes sense that that's what happened. But I mean, what luck. I mean, all we had to do was make it about another 5 laps, and we'd have won this thing. It's just par for the course so far. This way last year went for us, and these guys are the best crew. They prepare the best car on the racetrack, and again, they've proved it again, and it's just, we fell short again.
Well, his day will come, and who knows, it may be at Phoenix or maybe even at Indianapolis. It's really starting to come down now.
Yeah, Brian Howard has extended the red flag at the start-finish line. Well, over at the Magic Kingdom, the drivers this week had some chances to get there and try out Disney Splash Mountain. That was appropriate training for today. Look at Buzz Calkins, Mike Groff there in the front, Tony Stewart, Eddie Cheever. All players in what's happening now. A deluge stops the race. If Eddie Cheever is declared the winner, he will win without having led a green lap. Gary?
Here's Eddie now in that unique situation. I don't know if you've realized, I mean, obviously this thing could be called, you could be a winner without having led a lap under green. Now that's pretty ironic, isn't it?
I don't really mind how it happens. The car ran very well. We were very competitive. What can I say? We worked very hard to put the First Plus car in first place. So if we have managed to do that, the whole crew will be very happy, and so will I.
What was the game plan going in with everybody on this fresh page with new engines, new chassis, and not much development time?
Well, we had very little development time since we only had 2 engines. But my plan, or the plan that the engineers developed, was to run the car very conservatively, put a lot of push into the car. In the beginning of the race, I had a car that was almost impossible to turn. It was just going straight on everywhere. But the race came to me as they said it would. We had a big problem because we didn't have a radio in the race, so I could not call in. But we had talked through the plans that we're going to do, and everything worked like clockwork. I'm very lucky to have some very professional and very good crew working on our car, so it makes my job a lot easier.
Now, what's this next, who knows how long, going to be like until you get an official determination if this race is called, or in fact, you've got to go back out and race?
Let's go race. I'm ready right now.
Paul?
Not right.
Well, as it rains here, we're going to give you some racing. We're going to go back to last year's race. I do want to remind you that in this race last year was Scott Brayton, who won the pole at Indy and then was fatally injured in a practice accident after that. His family continues to be involved. His wife is here. She's involved in racing. And his father continues to be involved by working on some of the engines for the Indy Racing League. So, in a way, this is a bit of a tribute to Scott Brayton. But we go back to the green flag from last year's running of the Indy 200 at Walt Disney World.